We've actually got a chance to talk to Jane Jazrawy time and time again. Always love digging in with the CEO of Carrier's Edge. It says 15 minutes, but we'll see how long the segment takes. Phone lines are open throughout if you guys want to get information about what Carrier's Edge can do for you. 615-292-6366. It is built for trucking by people who understand trucking, and that's a good place to start. Hey, Jane, welcome back. It's like deja vu all over again.
I know it's been so long. I've missed you.
I've missed you terribly, and yet here you are at the crack of doom, at the crack of
I know.
doom on the
I
West Coast.
know.
Good
You
morning, good
bloody
morning.
torture me.
I
You
well,
torture me, Jimmy.
we,
Do this. Why don't we do this at 5 in the afternoon, like,
we
like normal
we
people?
we could if you wanted to. I mean, it would mean that I have to get another producer to come in here and record, but I'm more than happy to sit my ass down in the Degas house over here at the Fastport Studios. Got another sponsor in there, by the way. Jane, let's kind of talk a little
Yes.
bit about because one of the reasons, I'm a big fan of when Donna comes to me and says sponsor for a segment, take care of this segment. I always kind of have a pause, being like, I'm not sure what that has to do with such and such. The natural fit for the future was yesterday, and for me, Education Station makes perfect sense for Carrier's Edge. And I wanted to kind of give you a chance for the people who don't know Carrier's Edge to learn about Carrier's Edge because it can be an amazing tool for both, the individual and for the carrier and for the fleet and for the small business. So kind of give us the 30,000-foot view and we'll go from there. Origin story, as it were.
Well, first about what we do, what we actually do is that we help small and mid-sized trucking fleets who are serious about improving safety by providing easy to use, industry specific online training that we build entirely in-house so that you can run a safer fleet without adding more work or complexity. We help reduce violations, we keep drivers engaged, and we really just simplify compliance. We try to make everything that we do, we try to make as simple as possible.
CarriersEdge.com. And by the way, we were talking about this yesterday. We had this interesting segment where we were, where Lindsay was actually working on prepping up stuff for We Should Write. So I had a little bit of time. And we were talking about one of the most difficult things in putting together a business. Well, first of all, misidentifying a market is a real problem. Getting ahead of your skis is often the second biggest problem, where people actually figure out exactly what's needed and aren't in a position to actually be able to do anything about it because they're undercapitalized or they're understaffed. This is a really kind of great thing too because you actually saw a need. This comes
hmm
about because of a need. So tell us why it is you guys put Carrier's Edge together and how you've been and you guys have done what I think is really smart is you began where you could and then went where you should. Is that fair?
Yeah, that is totally fair. We started way back we launched Carrier's Edge in 2005. And at that point, we were working in technology, we were working in high tech, software companies, we were doing consulting. So we were very white collar, but when we were in consulting, we were working in all these different industries. So I was working on projects to do with diamond mining, I was working on distribution and all kinds of things that I really didn't know about at the time, but I was learning the business processes. I was learning like all the steps that you have to take to do something. I did a project on that was railways and doing equipment maintenance on the railway. So I was sort of all around it. And so what we did is we wanted to do online learning. That was our thing. We wanted to do it for businesses, but back in 2005, it was very white collar. If you were doing online learning, you were working at a bank, you were working in an insurance company. And what we wanted to do is provide online training or online learning development for an industry who needed it but didn't have it or couldn't figure out how to access it. So we did a lot of experimenting with fleets. So we talked to fleets about doing custom content, which was like there's just not the budget for that. So how do we do something for companies that don't have a large budget but need to train a lot of people who are all over the place so they don't have to come in on the weekends for safety meetings and that kind of thing. So we kind of started from scratch and it was really like like we took a consultative approach. We were trying to figure out what the industry needs, and we did bit by bit, we built something that's really for the trucking industry. Our learning management system, that where our courses are housed, is built entirely for trucking. We don't do anything else. Where other companies will go, to try and maximize the revenue, they go across industries. We don't. We stick with trucking.
Talk to me, like I said, I mean, I've heard a little bit of it already inside of your answer, but talk about the decision to go with trucking because, I mean, you began in the white collar sector looking at, was it a
Hmm.
matter of looking around? Like, so you're consulting here, you're consulting there, you're talking about online learning, which I want to get to in a second. But what was the light bulb that said, you know what, there's a real gap in this market for this. And if we focus on this, do you remember that moment where you said, if we focus on this, there might be a way to actually establish a real client base and get a real product going here?
Well, we were thinking more about the product. We're product people. We weren't thinking about who's going to buy it. We were thinking, what do people need? Because we're educators. Both my co-founder and I are, both have education degrees, and we didn't like doing the stand-up classroom teaching, and we really like technology. So we were we're looking for how do we make a product that's going to work for people. So what we did was we were looking at, okay, who needs online training that could use it? And we were sort of looking around, and the reason that we found trucking was because someone kind of said, oh, you know what, I work in the trucking industry and we could really use something like this. And we're like, oh, okay, that sounds good. And then we started doing a little bit of investigation, and we found the sheer amount of regulations that truck drivers have to understand is quite insane, and that all of these regulations keep changing all the time, and that everybody is spread out. And we knew what that was like because as consultants, we were traveling all the time, and we didn't get to do any, if we were doing any learning at all, it was something reading or online or that kind of thing. So because we have expertise in breaking down information, so my education background comes in really handy, is I can break down information into specific chunks and put them in the right order. Then it kind of became a no-brainer that we could start looking at what trucking has to know and start building content for the industry. And we started with hazardous materials because, why not start with the easiest thing? That was It's like, sure, oh, hey, we could do this. In Canada, it's called transportation of dangerous goods. And it was like, okay, well, looks like a good topic. And we broke that down, and we broke it into steps. And so we kind of started there. And then, you'd think that most people would start with driving or defensive driving, that kind of thing. We did that second, but we've learned a lot, because what we do is, we are educators and our expertise is education. What we do is we utilize the subject matter experts that are all around us. So when we are creating a course, we're either partnering with someone who is we're coming out with an air brakes course that is going to be the pièce de résistance of air brake courses, because we've partnered with the gentleman who authored the Practical Air Brakes Handbook, which is utilized quite a lot. And also that was created with the input of the CVSA. So we have all of this information that we put together, and we kind of take all the best practices from a number of different sources. So it's not just one subject matter expert. We go and look at, okay, well, what are you doing and what are you doing? And we put it all together and create content that is going to be something that is we don't talk down to drivers. So it's something that drivers can understand. It's the days in their life. It's something that they can understand. And even the experienced drivers really learn something.
It's interesting too, by the way, because you sent an email not too long ago, and I laughed at it not because it was foolish. I laughed at it because I call it forgetting what is reflexive for ourselves, in the sense that I'm gonna pick on Dave Nemo here, in a good way. Dave Nemo at one point,
Okay.
and this is a good way, he was listening to somebody else's show, and he said, "Man, if I had that show," he said, "he needs to be funnier." And I laughed and I went, "You know that's a talent, right, Dave?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I know that you think being funny is just something that you do." I said, and then I had to take out a sheet of paper and I put it in front of him. I said, "Draw the picture." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, there's a dog right there on that blank sheet of paper. Just go ahead and draw it." And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Exactly." I said, "There are things that we do reflexively that actually we're talented at that we don't think about." And so you sent me this document here, and what it says is Carrier's Edge helps small and mid-sized trucking fleets who are serious about improving safety in the bottom line. We help reduce violations, keep drivers engaged, and simplify compliance. And when I saw that, I said to myself, that's a teacher's brain at work. And that's something that a teacher would not even bother to point out to anybody, because the job is to educate the listener, to educate the student on the information you have to have, meaning to, what is the outcome? A good teacher doesn't just teach information, they teach the end result of having that
Yes.
information. The idea that, if in fact you actually are a great history student, should be able to understand how whatever is happening now fits into the continuum of what happened before. Keep drivers engaged, which of course is making sure that, the people that are listening actually are in an environment that allows them to learn. Because if nobody's listening, it doesn't matter how good your information is. And then finally, simplify compliance. It doesn't say dumb down compliance, but the idea is
No.
that you're teaching the most effective way to implement the lesson to an engaged audience. And I was laughing about that email because I said, well, that's the kind of thing you forget to write down in explaining yourself, because that's what a teacher does naturally. They basically impart the information in an engaging manner in order to reach the destination as effectively and simply as possible. And that's at the core of what these videos are doing, right? I mean, so go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, simplifying compliance is, it's not about being the person who knows the most about compliance. It's the person who can break it down and say, you know what, don't put it in that order. And I'm going to get in the weeds because that's what I always do. I'm terrible about going into the weeds. But what part of my job, the most important part of my job, is making things make sense, making everything make sense. And the way that you make things make sense is you look at the order that you tell people. If you tell a story backwards, it's way harder to understand. If you put the punchline of a joke at the beginning, it's like, well, why are you doing that? But if you tell people, give people information in the right order, and that's how we build our courses. I am very fixated on order. So I will, when I'm talking to my content team, that's a lot of the thing that I'm saying is, if you're talking about, I don't know, doing a pre-trip inspection, like give them the overview of the things that they're going to be inspecting first, and then talk about, the different parts of the vehicle. Or if you're talking about this particular topic, make sure you make it make sense. And then when people go to access the material, they're looking at it and going, yeah, that's how I start my day. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, this is how I have to prepare for work. And this is what I'm doing while I'm driving. And this is what I'm going to do at the end of the day. And so putting everything into that particular framework where people are looking at it as, here's how my day is going to go, these are the things that I need to understand during the day, is my specialty. And it's something that I think is really, really important for people to be able to access that knowledge. And it really, something like hours of service is really, really confusing if you kind of just go in the order that the regulations are written. But if you take it and say, okay, what are the most basic points, we'll put them first, and then we're going to build on it, and then we'll get to the exceptions at the end. That's the way that we approach the content. So we have it in sort of segments that make sense, that also that don't just talk about the specific topic, but it will also talk about how it fits into your day.
Okay, so one of my favorite ways to kind of teach, one of my favorite ways to kind of learn as well too, is you give me a micro example and then show me how that applies to the macro. Meaning, like, you can give me one lesson And in
Mhm.
giving me that lesson, I see the overall design of the bigger picture. So I was curious if, let's just say that I was somebody who had just started, I was an owner operator, and then I had 3 trucks,
Mhm.
and now I've got 20. Okay. And I'm trying to keep up with everything that's going fast and furious. And I want to make sure that the people who drive for me and the people that work for me and the people that actually, do the job of actually doing my job know enough to know enough. How is the best way to onboard Carrier's Edge? How do you fold it in? Give me an example of like a small business folding in Carrier's Edge to make you guys work for them.
Well, basically, the first thing that we do is have the company, whoever is going to be, well, I guess it would be the person who owns the company, talk to our customer success team. And what we do is we will set you up with your environment. So it depending, and what is really cool about that is you can, as your company grows, you can have Carrier's Edge grow with it. So say you start with an owner operator with 3 drivers or 3 trucks and say 3 drivers, you can have those in the system. So you have your organization, you have your drivers as users who can take courses. As the owner of the company, you can also see it, and you can see the entire catalog. This is, we don't say, oh, you only get this bit for this much money. It is one monthly fee. You get everything. And what happens is we will set you up so that you can create your own training plans. And a training plan is basically if you want to do orientation, for example, you could choose 5 courses that you want to do in orientation. So if you want to do hours of service, you want to do hazmat, you want to do, I don't know, defensive driving, that kind of thing, you can have that. You can have that as a program, and then you can have a deadline set on it. So, and then those deadlines result in notifications that come to you, so that you can be told when somebody has done a course, when they finished it, if they finished it, what they got on the test, if they failed the test, how many times they took the test, that kind of thing. That information, so that when you give people, you give your drivers that access to the system, you don't really have to be watching them. We will also tell you where they were when they did the course. So I'll give you the coordinates, so that is somebody at home doing the course, or is somebody actually in your, where you think they are. So then we have reporting as well. So you can run a report on your 3 drivers, or when you start increasing the number of your trucks, then you can do your 30 drivers or your 20 drivers or your 50 drivers. And then you can kind of grow your organization along with Carrier's Edge, because if you have 2 different terminals, we can create different places for you where you have drivers at each terminal, and you can have different programs for people at different terminals. You can have programs for people who are hauling different goods. So we can customize this. Our customer success team is like absolutely phenomenal. They are human. You will never get a chatbot. We don't believe in that. And they are available for you to help along the way.
Okay, and I'm going to get an existential question here for you.
Okay.
Do you feel like, by the way, not having bots, I love you. And one more reason I love Jane Jazrawy, of course, who is the CEO of Carrier's Edge, who joins us this morning, usually is a regular recurring guest on Education Station, which Carrier's Edge sponsors, and is our regular running partner for The Future Was Yesterday. She won't be joining us next week. Week after that, you are going on vacation. Um, do you feel like Mark Cuban made an insight with the rise of AI, the rise of ChatGPT, the rise of all of the kind of replacement specialists? If in fact IRL, in real life, human beings, events, and all that kind of stuff may be the next thing of the future. That the idea that I feel like the people who have always been ahead in the tech area, because both you and Mark worked in tech in the 90s, do you feel like that is something that customers really look for? Human beings, when you're dealing with so much technology, like you guys are helping people figure out technology, figure out all kinds of stuff in an industry that is rapidly accelerating. Do you feel like that is maybe one of the future things where customer service is going to become even more important for businesses in your field?
Oh, absolutely. I do not, I have such a beef. I could just go on about what has happened to customer service for a long time. So I have a lot of beefs with customer service, not our customer service, but I think that people to people connections are super important. And yes, you can use AI, and yes, you can save money. Like we could use a chat bot for to provide support to drivers. Drivers do not like that. I mean, we will give support to the carriers themselves, but we also support their drivers. And they call in a lot. They have favorite people that they talk to, and it's important that they have that human being, because it can be frustrating when you don't understand the content or you don't understand the technology. And just kind of giving you the chatbot that just keeps talking in circles doesn't help, and it just increases the frustration. So the experience needs to be positive, and we want real people to be talking to real people to explain, or whatever the issue is. We want to be able to resolve the issue with people, and we don't do that, try the blame game where it's like, oh, it's not us, it's this, or it's not us, it's this. And I think that what's going to happen as more AI comes into the industry and more people think, oh, I can save money by doing this, the more that human to human interaction is going to be appreciated and sought after, because it's going to become harder to find it. Like already in big businesses, it's very difficult to talk to a human. You have to go through the either you're using the chatbot on the website, or you're going through some sort of telephone, hell. And we don't want to do that. We don't want, like, learning should not be about frustration, and we want to take the frustration out of learning and the frustration out of running. When you want to run a safety program and you want to become safer, we don't want to have the interference that comes when things don't work. So we want to make sure that things work. We want to make sure that things work for a particular, like for carriers. And when something comes up, we want to be able to be at the forefront to solve the problem and solve it in a people first type of way.
I really want to kind of in the last few minutes we have here, and Jane has stayed, graciously longer than we asked her to. But I'm kind of curious in regards to that human touch. How does that go about the business of putting those videos together and the webinars and the lesson plans and all that kind of stuff? I mean, what can people expect when they see your content?
They can expect that it's in depth, that you're going to know what you're going to understand whatever the topic is by the end of it. We are pretty, when we create content, we start with learning objectives. We start with what is the point of whatever it is that we're writing. So, for air brakes, what is the point of, for this particular topic, what is the point? And what do we want to get out of it? And how, the issue that we have with a lot of experts is that they assume that people understand things that they don't understand, so they break it down. We want to break everything down and make sure we don't forget anything, that we don't leave gaps in the knowledge. So when oh my gosh, I've gone and talked myself into the weeds. What was the question again, Jimmy?
Well, but just about the content, the expectations of, like I said, I want people to understand that when they go there, they're going to get exactly what you kind of outlined there. I mean, you can tell them what the content is like.
Well, basically, we start with what is going to be the situation. So if you're looking at hours of service, we talk about, okay, well, why do you have to know anything about hours of service, and when are you going to have an issue with it? So we kind of frame the problem. So with air brakes, you need to understand what air brakes are, because they're a vital part of your vehicle, and you want to be able to understand how they work and things will break down, but you don't want to do it as okay, here's this piece of equipment. This piece of equipment is called this, and this piece of equipment, this function does this, but we don't want to do like piece by piece by piece. We want to make it into something that makes sense as a whole. So you're going to see a day in the life scenarios. You're going to see, okay, we're going to take you from the simplest content to the most complex content. And we're going to take you on basically a little journey along the way to understanding whatever the topic is. So if it's hours of service, is how you figure out, I know everybody has ELDs, but now, if your ELD breaks down, what are you going to do? What does this mean? How do you calculate how many hours you have left to drive, or how many hours that you can stay on duty? How does this happen? And then by the end of it, you will understand that content. And we use interactivity, we use movies, when I say interactivity, I mean like things where you can answer questions, you can think about things, you can think about scenarios, you can do little quizzes. We have drag and drops and things like that. So, but also we talk about scenarios. So how is it going to affect your life if you know this or don't know this? So sometimes we have comparisons between someone who's doing it really well and someone who isn't doing it well, that kind of thing. We have, but by the end of it, as I used to say when I was doing stand-up training, by the end of it, you will know the things that we told you were going to know at the beginning.
By the way, it goes back to that 5-point paragraph structure. I tell you what I'm going to do, break it down into 3 pieces, and then tell you what it is you can actually glean from this and take forward into the future. By the way, you don't know Jack? Well, then you should know Jane. You should go to CarriersEdge.com. We'd love to hear from you. Guys, give us a call on the other side of this. Jane, thank you so much. CarriersEdge.com is where you should go. I'm going to say that again. If you don't know Jack, then you should know Jane. Go to CarriersEdge.com. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jimmy.